this. Okay, the last time I was talking about Lucy Herman, how from Stanford Law, you know, how I'd known her all of my life. What I had said was that I, you know, saw Lucy again in Washington, D.C. when she was working for Deacon Cheney and I was working for Senator Johnston. But then when the last time I was living in Paris with my kids, you know, were small, we were living near Parc Monceau. I mean, this was a far cry from the student room that I had as a jeune fille au pair, and then the studio apartment that my ex had as a student, and then, you know, so this was a really nice, I mean, we were expats by this time, so it was a very nice apartment. So anyway, she, by this time, she was in San Francisco and working on her doctorate. I was like, I mean, every time I talked to her, she was working on her doctorate. I was like, how many years does it take to finish doctorate? So her fiance was French, and they had a house that they were redoing. I forget exactly, somewhere in France. So she would come, and then he had an apartment that he had for a long time up above Saint Denis, which is not a good neighborhood, which is northern suburb, but just northern suburb of Paris. And so, you know, I would invite her all, you know, over when we'd have dinner parties or anything. And I always made sure that my husband would drive her home afterwards, because, you know, I didn't want her on public transportation. As I say, it was not a good neighborhood. I mean, I understand it wasn't an expensive apartment, nobody was there, and I gave them a place to stay when they would be coming back and forth through Paris. I was always concerned about her going home. Then she married this guy, and she asked me to come to, by this time we were living in Bogota, and she asked me to come to San Francisco to be her maid of honor. Now, she had always been my older sister's best friend, but she was like, no, you know, I always liked you better than your older sister, whatever. I was like, well, so I said, okay. So we went, I'd spent the summer in Florida with the kids. And then we had made our way. We'd actually gone through Arizona and told my parents we weren't sure about that. And then gone up and stayed in San Francisco. Lucy was angry with me because my younger sister and my older sister invited themselves to the wedding and the reception. I said, well, I had nothing to do with that. I mean, you know, if you weren't in one of them, then, and I'm gonna get a fight with them over that. There was enough of that going on that. I mean, you know, families who can't get together without having discussions over everything. It's time. So anyway, you know, when I came back from Spain and I made it out alive, Spain, and I get back to Washington, Lucy was coming through, because they, you know, they had, of course, lived in Washington. As I said, they were always between Harvard, Berkeley, Stanford, and then Phil Malone, her husband, was at DOJ. I'm not sure about all of the different timelines, because So I was like, oh my God, you guys move around from one place to another as much as I do. So, you know, she knew my situation. I'm like, I can't find a job. I'm getting discriminated against in housing. I mean, I'm looking at being homeless. And I mean, even her daughter was her youngest, was like, oh, well, you can come stay in my room if you don't have a place to stay. I was like, thank you, my dear. But anytime I've called her over the years to talk to her about anything that I'm working on, gotta go, got a meeting. I mean, it's the standard, you know, this is the world of the narcissistic 10%ers. And it doesn't matter if it's the Americans or the Europeans or anywhere else, because I mean, I know them all over the place. You know, they're your friends when everything's going hunky-dory. But anytime there's any kind of problems, they don't want to be around because they do want to do the parties. So anyway, I mean, you know, it was even more, I mean, I was like, you know, with friends and best friends and sisters like these, who needs enemies? Oh, and then I had mentioned Foxhound at Foxcroft, but I hadn't really gone into that and why I had mentioned that. I was a fox. But I really never participated in any of that because, and my sister was a fox because if one of the siblings, one of the sisters, you know, is because when you get there, it's decided whether you're a fox. I forget the ceremony, you know, because they don't want to create animosity between sisters any more than they're already with there. So if one sister is voted, you know, picked for fox, the other sister automatically goes or vice versa. But it really instilled, and I understand why Miss Charlotte started it as well as the school, but you know, both the message and the reason has kind of been warped, because it really was it made everybody very, very, very competitive between and polarized between the two sides, which is never a good thing, as we see. You don't want a polarization and only if we like you and only if you're popular and, you know, lots and lots of fun. I mean, I like to have fun. I like to have parties, but that's not the ends of my existence, and it shouldn't be for anybody. Okay, let's see if anything falls out. There we went. Some if it fell out, we'll take the top of that. Okay, I'm going to do 2 cards. Oh, and I guess we're coming up to 9/11. I'll wait to 9/11 and we'll see if something comes up on 9/11. But that's something that I got questions. I don't know if anybody else has questions, but Okay. For the first pile, we've got Lage. Okay, for the first pile, we've got John Kasich. Not familiar with him, former governor of Iowa. Okay, I've got here, of course, a Trump loyalist. Pay-to-play jobs. Cronyism is 85% in Washington, and I think everywhere, but definitely in Washington. So everything's pay to play, and who your friends are, and who you know, not what you know. Okay. Yeah, Ohio votes Trump with the highest turnover rate of any president. Yeah, okay. As I say, this was the vote Trump. So this was the 2020 elections. Okay, well, he was with Lehman Brothers. Now, I worked for Shearson Lehman Brothers. So that would have been 86, 87, right before I left Washington and went to Paris. And I worked for George Schwelling. And it was called the dividend rollover program. I think I already spoke about this, how, we would buy on the trading low, wait for the ex-dividend date, and then sell it on, at the high, but when it's coming down. So you caught profit plus you caught the dividend, and it was on blue chip stocks. So, it was a good program. However, George Schwelling, I mean, Chuck Ury, who was the one who picked the stocks and was the analyst, if you will, was real nice guy. But George Schwelling, you talk about your pompous, stockbroker, sell. So I had a lot of problems with how aggressively he would sell his program, and even putting some people, because you had to have a minimum of 50,000, because you did have to, leave it in there for a while, because it is trading, and you're catching, small profits. So it is money. It's not for anybody who's going to have to liquidate that account quickly. This is something that you can leave in there for years and years and years, and not have to say, okay, I got to liquidate it. That's not the place where this is also the problem that I had with a lot of the money managers. I'm like, this is not a product for this person. So that he was real, but one of the funniest stories, God, was he a male macho asshole. He's still around. So he when I first started, he asked me to go through his accounts. That's why I know for a fact his accounts were making 15 to 18% return per year, which, for a blue chip stock trading program, that's a really, really good rate. At the time, I don't know with the hedge funds in there nowadays. But anyway, I know those are the numbers because I actually crunched the numbers. And so he gave me all of these. Oh, and back in those days, it was books, papers, and you had to do all of the calculations. We did have calculators, but put together the calculations by hand. We had one computer, and for the 3 traders, and then there was the 2 brokers. And so, he said, okay, put together a profit loss on all of these accounts going back, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. So I put it together for him, and I bring him the results. And he's sitting there going, no, this is not how you do it. And so he goes through the calculation. He takes an account. He goes through the calculation. And I'm sitting here going, does this jackass not realize those are the exact same calculations I did? It's just in a little bit of different order. And he didn't. And when he finished, he looked at my result, he looked at his result, and he sat there scratching his head, and he couldn't figure out how he got the same result. And he goes, well, okay, thanks. I went out and told the girlfriends, the other assistants, because I had been forewarned. This guy had a revolving door with assistants for good reason. And he had a thing for the dumb blondes. Oh God. The other girl I had the dumb blonde girl, and the other assistant that he had was his token Harvard. This was a Harvard graduate, and he'd always talk about his great Harvard graduate assistant that he had. The guy was a disaster. His major was in forestry, and he had done all of his coursework in Colorado in forestry, but then I think his father had connections through Harvard, so they got him transferred to Harvard at the end, so he got a Harvard degree instead of one from Colorado. So his major had been in forestry. I don't know how many times his books were never in order, because we each had accounts assigned to us. So his books were never in order. And anytime a stock would start moving, and I'd be watching them, because when it's coming close, but you don't know it's going to hit. So you're looking at a couple others, and if it's going to hit the price, you got to be ready with all of your, even prepare your tickets. If you don't want to do it too much in advance, because maybe it's not going to hit, but get your numbers together, because we do, because I'd get the numbers, and then we do, what do you call it? It's been so many years, but we do a trade through New York, group it all together, and 2, 3, 4,000 stocks, and then when we put in the tickets, we divide it all up into what we had. So I had to know the numbers, and I had to know exactly what your numbers are, because if they're not right, we're going to come out under or over. Never. I don't think he got his numbers one time correct. And then how many times, because most of the time when a trade be coming in and it would hit, he's either at lunch, at the squash court, wherever. So I just add his I go to his books, which are not in order, and I pull out what we need, and I figure out, to make it all juggle. And then I'm like, okay, now you do the tickets and get them in. Well, a lot of times I do the tickets myself because he wasn't around. One time, I mean, I really lost it. I mean, I didn't know how many times I was like, look, you need to keep your books up. And, you know, if you're not going to be around, I need to know so that I'm not trying to figure out what you got. And he comes in and he says, well, I just sold such and such stock because it hit the price. I said, are you kidding? That thing hit the price over a week ago. Your confirmations are sitting in your box. You haven't even seen it. So of course, bust the trade, bust the trade. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I was at the back office going, oh God, you guys, again, we got to bust another trade. I mean, and this, George Schwellen, when the clients would come in, this was his great Harvard, you know, star. Oh God. So after I learned, because I did learn a lot there, I learned a lot. I didn't even stay 1 year. I think, well, that's when I left for Paris. When I always say that I was there for the 87 crash, technically that's not right because I had taken, it was the Monday and I hadn't gone into work. I was just like, oh, we used to call them mental health days. So I hadn't gone into work and I called the office and I said, okay, what's the market doing? And his name was Keith. And he said, you know, like down, I forget, you know, now this is nothing but 300-500 points. And I said, oh, stop your bullshit. Pass me to Patty, you know, stop joking with me. She picks up and she said no. And I said, oh my Lord, I'm so glad I'm not in there today. So yeah, although yeah, I went in the next day and the you know, the following months, I mean, George was on the phone, you know, telling his clients everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. And since it was in blue chip, it did come back. I mean, you know, not when I was there because I left. That was October 87. I left at the end of the year. But you know, they did come back. However, of course, you couldn't sell, otherwise you take the loss. I mean, that's what we always tell the clients. A loss is a loss, is not a loss until you take it. A profit is not a profit until you take it. That's what I tell all these people. This guy, he's like, oh yeah, I made this much, that much in the stock market. And then I overhear him, he's like, no, you know, it's still in there. I'm like, well, buddy, then you haven't made it. Because until you sell, until you take that profit, doesn't exist. Well, one of the guys who worked for my ex-husband in Bogota, in the Treasury Department of Banco Ganadero, he his father's Colombian, his mom's American, but you know, had grown up in Colombia, in Bogota. And so he wasn't sure if this was going to go over very well with the old fogey Spanish, you know, from BBV headquarters that are coming to Banco Ganadero, a presentation. So he gets up and he explains the stock market, and he has a yo-yo. And he takes the yo-yo and he starts doing, he could do all sorts of tricks. And he starts doing all of these tricks. And I was, because my ex had told me that he Camilo, and I was like, oh, only Camilo would do would do something like that, but good for him. And he said, well, the stock market is like a yo-yo. It goes up, it goes down, it goes, or the currency market, or the markets, and it goes all around. It is a casino. And it has increasingly been so since the 70s. Well, I won't bring in somebody here, but that'll come up with one of the IMF guys. But Mike Milken was a genius. I mean, he's one of these. Yeah, really was. Excuse me, he's still with us. We got the Mike Milken Institute over at he's with GW. Yeah, that's another one of my pet peeves with GW. So the junk bonds, because I remember I read that book in the 80s when I'm in college, and yeah, it was I mean, he took a product that had no liquidity, not much value, and was able to turn it into to be able to trade it, to give it a bit of value, which is okay. I mean, these are junk bonds. It's like penny stocks. It's warrants. I mean, these, or options. These products, it's okay if it's a small portion of money who's being invested, and people, how shall I say, well, they're going to speculate on this, or they're going to speculate on that. But again, as I say, you guys get into speculation, you don't bet the farm, you bet your pennies. There it's like a crapshoot. Okay, and for some people, pennies, and if you're involved in all this high risk stuff, pennies for you should not be like dollars or hundreds of dollars, or even, I mean, getting into tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or up, if you're going to trade these things, because they are highly risky. Yeah, you can make you can make a high yield, but high yield, high risk. So, as I say, if you've these aren't problematic products, as long as they remain a small portion of what's going on, and it's for people who, it depends, because it depends if it's an option, it depends if it's a commodity. You have a certain interest in this certain financial market, and you want to play. As I say, it's I mean, please play there rather than the casinos. And also, then you're playing, I mean, based on something. Sorry. Okay, maybe some gamblers can say, no, you're wrong, lady. But at least with the stock market, there's some added value to the economy. Now, the casino owners could say that we produce jobs, but I'm like, yeah, okay, but that's so anyway, as I say, because I worked at E.F. Hutton before Shearson Lyman, and I learned a lot. It's an interesting industry. We need our banking systems, we need our financial markets, we just need them properly regulated, and not, oh, let's just pass some laws and make it look. No, because if your regulators are a bunch of schmucks. Oh, one of my favorite is in The Big Short, the movie, and I forget, it's one of these traders. I forget what his name is, but he's the top trader, and the young, his lower traders, well, he's responsible, the manager, and the traders say, no, I'm going to take you to this convention of, it's in the mortgage, traders, it's all the different mortgage traders. And they go to the convention, and the head honcho, he starts talking to these guys, and he's talking to the one guy, and he's sitting there, he's like, I cannot believe he is actually bragging about all of the illegal crap he's involved in. And the guy goes on and on and on and on. And he walks away from the table. He tells his traders as he's walking away, he said, you find out everything this guy has touched and you go short. But take a look at The Big Short. It's not just the mortgage, markets of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and all of those. It's everywhere. I mean, when I got back to Washington and I'm at the IMF, and it was the spring 2016 meetings, that I forget how I saw Mike Milken's name and find he's over, because there's the Mike Milken, he somehow institute, I think it's finance, but then there's this public health, department or whatever of it, GW. He is in that cesspool of GW, IFC, World Bank, and IMF. And buddy. I was horrified. I said, what is Mike Milken still doing in the game? I don't know. He's been exonerated. And he's welcome back to the club. Larry Summers is the name, and it's going to come up quite a bit. He's a key figure. He's all over the map. If everybody thinks that I'm all over the map, he's all over the map as well. Okay, so let's do... Well, when I was just talking about IMF and Mike Milken, GW, it's the Penn Avenue Quadrant, I think, Mafia Quadrant, I think I called them. My blog it was a series of blogs. I did 52, and that was one of them. And that's the one I entitled. That's the one. You can find it, but I gave out ostrich awards. Then I had the bellowing cow award for the women, the toad awards, because I said at least the ostriches, they only hide their heads. The toads profit from it. The bellowing cows are just a bunch of feminists who are sitting there mooing. So the next one. Oh no, sorry. Same pile. Okay, let's go for the second pile. Then we'll do Mike Pompeo. Well, not far from the World Bank, the IMF, the GW. It's all over there. So, I mean, you know, the State Department is, how shall I say, the root of my basis, the foundation of my basis for my case against the Americans. So I think I've, you know, kind of covered that, how I'm bringing my case against first the State Department, well, the consulate in Spain, that they're not doing their job in assisting me there, and then the State Department, consulate and the embassy, of course, is part of the State Department. State Department, then since the State Department doesn't do its job, I'm over at the White House and Congress. After that, you know, as I say, I'm supposed to be able to go to the international community and the human rights community, but they're all out to lunch. So, you know, I tell people, I'm like, where am I supposed to take it? To God? He already knows. He's the one who's bitching at me. I'm like, not my fault. Tell him to listen. So anyway, okay, he wants peace with North Korea. Oh Lord, that man, you talk about the dictator of North Korea. But you know, we're just reproducing it. Oh, his first wife is a mystery, apparently. I couldn't find really information on her. Well, as usual, you know, the wives, she's honorary president of the AAFSW. I'd have to Google, but that's, you know, one of the military type, or the foreign, that must be the Foreign Service Family Association. Because Millie's wife is the military. She's the Foreign Service. Oh my Lord. And the Foreign Service people, as my sister told me, the one in Colombia, in Bogota, several years ago, she said, you would not believe the wives of the embassy, you know, people, the American embassy, are getting stupider and stupider. You can't imagine. I said, yes, I can, because I'm here in Washington with them. I mean, so he was apparently CIA director 2017 to 18, Secretary of State 2018 to 21. So Trump put him in so he's West Point, Harvard Law. This is what these schools are producing. Also, he was at Williams and Connolly. Brendan Sullivan is over there. But it's another one of the law firms, bigwig law firms in DC, that have been complicit to the rise of the Fourth Reich in the past 40 years. Because they, you know, where have they been? Oh, the pro bono departments. Believe me, I've gone through the profile and the cases that they're taking on and what they're doing of every single one. Well, a good sampling. And I'm like, this is such window dressing and propaganda. because you're with the cases that you're taking on, you're just perpetuating biases towards a lot of these different groups, while going, oh, look at me, look at me. So you get an award. How we're helping this poor person, while the courts, there's a lawlessness all over the city. So of course, it's like the guy who drops the $100 bill in the collection basket on Sunday to show how caring they are. Apparently he was part of the Tea Party. I have that here. When I got back to the States, first I had to get a roof over my head in Washington. I stayed, some people in Baltimore the first weeks until I found a place to rent in DC. That was only for a month, but then that gave me at least some time to find a job. And then with the job, I was able to find something. It was month to month cash, but at least it was, it wasn't only for a month. Kicking me out as well. The jealousy of women is just horrible. So I really wasn't, let's just say those were my priorities at the moment until I got all of that and a job, and then I was at the IMF, then I regrouped and but in the meantime, the whole Tea Party thing was starting. And my younger sister starts posting on Facebook about me being a member of the Tea Party. And I was like, I don't care what you say about me, but do not start, cashing in or putting stuff out there about me in terms of politics. First, I know you have no idea what I'm doing or what all of this is about. And I don't even know anything about this organization or really what the hell. Yeah, okay, I know they're pissed off and they're right wing, but I don't, I'm just trying to get survival mode right here. I have no idea what their platform is. So do not. Well, that's been always a problem with her. I mean, Tea Party always reminds me of that story because, quite frankly, the whole Tea Party thing, I have read a bit on Wikipedia about it. And again, it was a platform, it was a movement that had a lot of validity in the quejas, the problems that the people involved in it had and were screaming about. Yet again, it was something that, well, Sarah Palin was involved in that. I mean, you talk about one of my branding things is you want to see a real pit bull with lipstick? She's a fraud. She's a fraud. And I knew that from the beginning. You talk about a control freak mom who her children as pawns and just a total facade. I loved it. I think it was Megyn Kelly. I'm not sure, but I think, yeah. That was like, what, newspapers do you read? Now, I will openly admit these days, you know what, you guys, I don't read them any anymore. Because it's all repetitive and the same cacophony and stuff. But I can tell you, I mean, not only in the United States, but in Europe, well, El País, El Figaro, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they'll be like, well, well, that one's full of bullshit. That's right-wing bullshit and that's left-wing bullshit. But at least I know basically what they're saying and what agenda they have. Huffington Post, that'll come up. That's one of my big pet peeves. Because see, the thing is, all the new platforms that have come in have not been the magic wand that everybody, we'll just get, so no, you got more bullshit. Okay, so, Pompeo, I think, because his first wife's a mystery, but I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Pompeo's wife is up creek without a paddle in terms of legal stuff. I haven't been following that, but I think she's gonna help. Let's just say they both might go to jail. Okay, so let's do the third pile. Okay, since I'm with Pompeo and pay to play, former governor of Ohio. This is one of the new ones that I did with, well, actually this one's upside down, but the Washington, it didn't have anything on there, so I did my own. So this is the rights of narcissists and psychopaths. Like, isn't that kind of counterintuitive, like the rights of pedophiles? I don't think these people should really have any rights. Well, at least not in the terms that they want to put on the table. So the rights of narcissists and psychopaths, let's just say their manifesto, their three basic dictates, if you will. So they have the right to scream hysterically anytime and anywhere they want. They have the right to be entitled, and everybody else has to kiss their ass. And they have the right to be the dominator. And whatever they want, whenever they want, they get it. If not, they go back to the first right, which is to scream hysterically. And the only thing that matters is appearances. Doesn't matter what's underneath the surface. It's just appearances. Aparentar, as they say in Spanish. So I'll tell you, I am so sick and tired, of everybody in this town. Well, everybody in the United States. It's like, I don't think I can go anywhere anymore with either somebody not being pissed as shit and, like, me, I'm not gonna serve you, or throwing things around and don't say anything, but you can tell it's this, hidden aggressive, or they scream at you. I'm like, thank you. Been there, done that. Thank you very much. I don't need it from you all. So let's see, which card am I going to get? Foregone conclusion in this game. I always win. But see, that's not usually the case when I play games. This poor kid one time I'm playing with, because the people would come to Madrid, and I'd be like, okay, go to the museums, go to visit, and I'll keep the kids and they can play in the garden, and we'll do all sorts of stuff. So we were playing the game War with all the kids. My eldest son is with his older brother on that team, and they are determined to win. He gets stuck with me. And I'm in because it's in the kitchen area, but I'm not, let's just say I'm not participating with the same vigor that my son is. I mean, we got creamed. We absolutely got creamed. He was so angry. I think he was like, I'm never playing with you again. So yeah, I'm not the greatest partner when it comes to that stuff. Okay, I get a Queen of Spades. William Hooper. He was founding father. Hooper was a lawyer, politician, and a member of the Continental Congress, representing North Carolina from 1774 through 1777. I don't really know much about him. Okay. So once again, I win. This is the only game that I play. Oh, and my Lord. We used to play bridge, and my mother-in-law and I would be on the same team, and my ex and his brother or his father, they used to cheat so much. I mean, so much, it wasn't even funny. And she would get bent out of shape every single time. And I would just laugh at her, and I said, don't you know part of the reason that they cheat like that is because they enjoy seeing you get pissed off about it. What do you care if we lose? Oh, Lord. And I was like, of course they're cheating. That's all I know how to do. I mean, my Lord. Okay, so anyway, I guess I'm just tired of this whole down. So the next card we've got, this was the IMF ICD directors. Okay, I've got in a lot to IMF Institute for Capacity Development. But these are the directors. So so after I was, and there's a long convoluted story, workplace bullying. So after I was wrongfully terminated from the Institute for Capacity Development by Adrian Thapa, who was by this time the office manager, for just ridiculous reasons. I won't go into all that again. As I say, the whole thing is the report, workplace bullying in the IMF. She gets my blood boiling. I mean, this woman, Adrian Thapa, how can you guys sit there and let this woman be office manager? And she's still there. Now she was, oh God, what is that? It was like temporary. And then after that, she was made permanent. I'm like, how are you people not saying anything about what's going on in this place? So, long story short, so I filed the report with the complaint, which is the report, is 150 pages long, with the ombudsman, the ethics committee, the mediator, and then I buck it up. I send also a letter to the staff association. And when nobody is answering me, I do send a copy to Christine Lagarde. Because Gita Ravindra, the mediator, she even told me, she said, Christine Lagarde is never going to find out about this. I was like, lady, you don't know who you're dealing with. Of course she's going to find out about this. And she's going to be pissed off because it is going to bite her in the ass like you can't believe. I mean, when she said that, I was like, lady, you don't know what Schitt's Creek, Schitt's Creek a paddle you are. So anyway, then I was working 2 jobs. Long story. Fast forward to the shutdown. So, okay, I still had pending in that whole thing was to go back to the directors of the Institute for Capacity Development, who are underneath Sharmini Curry. So there's, let's see, there's Mark Lewis, he's American. Robert Powell, he's British. Gerd Schwartz, he's German. Ralph Shemy, Lebanese. Andrew Berg is American. So these are the deputy directors under Sharmini Curry. So my thing with them is, wait a second. Everybody in that office complained to me about the crap, the administrative crap, and the mismanagement, the administrative mismanagement under Kate Phillips first, and then Adrian Thapa comes in. Now, I mean, if Kate Phillips had been smart, she wouldn't have been discriminating against me and creating some lawsuits for her while I was there. Instead, leaving the door open, and I'm not looking for the job as the office manager, but I certainly could have done it. I mean, I would have had that place cleaned up like that. Okay, I would have had problems with Sharmini, I'm sure. Because we're on totally different pages. So Why am I the one, thrown out on the street when I'm more competent than any administrative person that they have in that office, the secretaries, as much as their office manager, as much as their senior personnel manager? Because when Gina Paoni was moved over to IMF HR, I saw that job was opened up, and so I applied for it. However, and what they call the outboarding, or when I left the IMF, I met with this HR woman, and she told me that before being, if you were let go at the IMF, that you had a cooling off period before you would be brought back in. And I said to the woman, I said, "Hula, why would anybody need a cooling off period when they leave the IMF?" And she knew she'd made a gaffe. So I tried to get that from her in emails, because there were a couple emails exchanged. Written one, she was smart at least enough to know not to put it in writing. However, her word against mine, and I'm sorry, my word is a hell of a lot more reliable than hers. Then, because believe me, after I left the IMF, particularly when they said cooling off period, I'd be, ousted, marginalized. This is my second wrongful termination from this place. And I mean, they got lawsuits up to wazoozy from me. So then, it's on again, war on domestic terrorism, underneath the workplace bullying stuff, all of the applications that I did, not only at the IMF, but think tanks across the board. Are you kidding? I was like, I'm going to set you all up. You want to discriminate against me? So I got applications for entry-level positions, middle positions in all sorts of different places, as well as the top. When I get to the end, of course, because when I get back to the States, I'm not eligible for that. But by the time I'm at the end, with all the research that I've been doing, I'm eligible to be the head of any think tank in this city. And I'll tell you, they stop thinking so much and start doing. They all need to be trained. So anyway, I did, in one of the job applications that I saw, for some legal position, advisory. Anyway, it said that it put there in writing about an 8-year cooling off period. And I grabbed that print screen and I put it on there. It's out there, and I'm like, 8-year cooling off period. Now, why do you all need an 8-year cooling off period for people who have been ousted from the organization? Are they that angry at all the crap that you people are pulling? Oh, I loved that when I saw it. It's like, thank you, Lord. So, I exhausted all domestic remedies within the IMF. Now, of course, the question becomes, why can't I find any of the law firms and the lawyers? I mean, I've been here looking for lawyers. It's not like nobody knows who I am or what I'm doing in terms of human rights stuff. Why can't I find somebody simply to, take all of these people to the courts who are discriminating right and left and just flagrantly violating laws. And why then why afterwards I said, okay, fine. All of you deputy directors are going to get a letter from me as well. Because it's not only my lawsuit, my problems for wrongful termination and the labor rights violations going on, and the mismanagement from the administrative position arena, if you will, but it's also the practices and policies of the Institute for Capacity Development, which I saw when I went to the spring meetings in 2016. And I started putting all the dots together. And I was like, wait a second. And then with, this is what they call the IMF University. I'm like, yeah, another university producing a bunch of bullshit. So basically what they're doing is producing a lot of training courses to train the finance ministers how to manipulate financial markets and banking systems in anti-capital, which violate the rules and fundamentals of capitalism and stable economies. So, I got a problem with their management, internal management, as well as the upper management and the practice and policies that they are promoting and developing, just like throughout the IMF. But I'm not the only one. As I say, the only book, really the best criticism and the only book on the IMF about its policies that I've already mentioned, this Kopovich, with banks bailouts and something. I always have to Google it. So, not just some bimbo who, I don't like what you have to say. No, I've done my homework. So all of these guys got after the shutdown, they got, as I say, I hadn't had time, but retraite. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 15 years. Even if I'm 2 years late or so with a letter for you, it's still valid. If I had some help and I had some assistance, it would take me so long to get these letters out, but I do what I can. So within that group of people, first there's Mark Lewis. Now, Mark Lewis was the resident rep, they call it res rep, in Turkey. I didn't put I'm not sure exactly what years, but before, so he joined the Institute for Capacity Development like 6 months or so before I left. So that's 2015. I think he had been back to the IMF for about a year or a bit more. Probably one of those situations where, okay, he's finished his res rep and now we got to find him a job here in the headquarters. Before that, he had been res rep in Turkey. Now, when in the 2016 spring meetings, I had seen there were working papers that he had done, and he had been mission chief as well for Cyprus. And Cyprus was a very similar situation in many ways to Turkey. I mean, Turkey's a better case study, but Cyprus, there were some things that needed to be looked at. But so let's just talk about Turkey. Now, it was using his working papers, and during the time that he was res rep, that I saw this trend. It was like about a 10-year trend, and the same everywhere in developing countries, because you have the high income, the middle income, the low income. So this is middle income in the emerging markets. And basically what the policies of governments and the business community, the banking community, the corporations, is always the same. So financial inclusion. Yes, financial inclusion is important, but if your banking systems and financial markets are nothing but predatory systems that are designed to milk your citizenry, not good. So then, economic development with more consumer goods, offering more consumer goods. That's great. The example I always use is when I lived, well, first in England in the 70s, and then in Spain in the 90s. And I would be like, it's like in the United States in the 70s, we were more consumers than everybody else in the world, but it wasn't to what it is today. And I would tell people in England, and we went to Spain, and we went to Portugal, and we stayed, because we went riding with Núñez de Oliveira, and we stayed at the one hotel that had running water in the little town in Sintra, it's near Sintra. And beautiful little, really, really nice hotel, but it was the only one with running water. So, for me, I was like, coming from the United States, I'm like, whoa, this is like third world stuff. And then in England, I was like, you know what, you guys, hot water in cold climates is not a luxury. Heat is not a luxury. In these old, castles. So anyway, I at first in Europe, I would be like, you know what, you guys, a little bit of comfort is not a bad thing. But now it's gotten to the extent of buy, throw away. And I saw, those trends coming to Europe over the years. So that's not good. So these are because in Colombia, I saw the same thing, exact same thing when I was there. So, again, this gets into empire building and exploitative and predatory development by the haves of the have-nots. So, I was like, oh my God. And come on, once again, we see where this led to the rise of a dictatorship. It's just a repeat of what's happened in the United States in a more condensed time period and at a smaller scale. But if you look at these trends of every single country, as I said, I saw it in Colombia when I did the case study here. I saw it in Turkey. I saw it in Spain. I mean, we were going back and forth because we go for vacations during the summer, but I did go there originally in 1990 was the first time. And then when I left, it was beginning of 2009. And I'm sure it's just, and this is one of the reasons why all of the injection, or the principal reason that the injection of the money from the European Union into Southern Europe backfired. So until you clean up the corruption, which means people don't think that you're a schmuck if you pay taxes, and play by the rules. And, you know, that mentality. And you know, more of the Puritan work ethic. As I said, oops, sorry. At the beginning with Cuomo, everybody in Europe goes to the south of Europe for vacations because they dance, they drink, they have great food, you know, they like to party. You need a balance. Yeah, Hitler got the trains running on time. You know, the people of the North are more industrious, although that's changing, and that's not always true. I mean, my goodness, for example, the waiters in Spain, oh, give me a waiter in Spain over a waiter in France, particularly the Parisian ones. We'll have some discussions, particularly if I have a child with me. In France, well, the British, children should be seen nor heard. In France, children should not be seen nor heard. And God forbid you take them to a restaurant. You can bring your dog, but you better not bring your children. The Spanish know what I'm talking. Okay, so Mark Lewis. Now his case becomes convoluted because his, as if it's not already, because his ex-wife is from Turkey. Well, her family is from Turkey. So she's probably second generation Turkish immigrants, I'm thinking, from Baltimore. So a definite social climber. So, you know, another example of foreigners coming into this country and cashing in. This woman, she got 2 diplomas. I forget, one from like in foreign service, Georgetown. I forget the other. These are super expensive diplomas. And I bet bottom dollar that taxpayers paid for it through the tuition reimbursement program. I don't know if she's in real estate now, or she's got some company importing jewelry or stones or something from Turkey. I'm not sure. She has a profile on LinkedIn, but it doesn't really look like she's doing anything. Perfect example of a parasite on society. You know, her husband's cashing in. She's got $1 million house. He's got Well, it's not $1 million, his apartment, but an expensive apartment, all on taxpayers' money. For what? To party and to take the world for a ride? Because before IMF, he was at World Bank. His career, World Bank, IMF. He's been there the whole time. He's American. Now, all of these guys know about my research. All of these guys know about global expats. All of these guys know about all of my crap in Spain, my efforts to take cases to the international courts. I mean, I worked in the department for 4 years, and everybody complains that that's all I talk about. Yeah, because that's what I came to you know, back to my country to do. And I'm facing not only, you know, all of my activism work against the American government, but I'm getting discrimination from the IMF employees, right and left, denigration. I mean, the attitude I get here, same crap I got all the time in the IMF. Top to bottom, from everybody. I know it's an international organization, but this is my freaking country. And I mean, you can't imagine the idiots. And some of these girls have been there for 20, 30 years. Nobody says anything. Nobody wants to get involved. They're just here to cash in, as are their wives. Now, she was already here. I mean, okay, they're Americans, but for me, that doesn't change anything. The expats who come here, and I mean, their wives, I mean, I saw that at the IMF Family Association. I was even like, well, if anybody wants to, you know, a lot, they would be wealthy women if somebody had helped me. But no, they came to Washington in the United States to live the good life and cash in. All of them, the only thing that they were interested in. And these are the people that we have working in our international organizations and our government agencies. They're all, you know, it's all the same. So then there's Robert Powell. Okay. Robert Powell, I think, is probably one that is more of Schitt's Creek without a paddle than anybody else. Well, out of this list. So Robert Powell was the director of Strategy Evaluation Division. Now, I worked there last month or last 2 months that I was at in ICD before I was terminated by Adrian for daring to contradict her. But so this division is basically supposed to examine if the department, you know, if what the department's courses and what they're doing is being effective or not. And they've got in this division, because this division, when I first started, was like no one. It was what was his name? Something Green. It was just one guy, because I used to sometimes, if his secretary was out, then I'd go and you know, fill in for her for the day, and you know, didn't do much. And it was just, I think it was Mark Green. I forget his first name. Very nice guy. So Robert Powell, so this division, since I've been in the department, has really expanded, and now it's got I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 people working in it, 2 assistants, and Rosa Labarca. She and Elizabeth Elliot, I don't know, they're neck and neck for being some of the stupidest women I saw in that place the entire time that I was there. So, I mean, how is the IMF going to meet me in the international courts justifying that this is the best and brightest secretaries that you can frickin' find? And the other ones in the place are not far behind those 2 ladies. I mean, just it boggles, and they've been there. I mean, Elizabeth Elliot was there for like 38 years or something. Her father, of course, he was at GW, who's a professor at GW. So of course he you know, he got they're all in bed. He got her a little cushy job, and nobody, I don't know how nobody was able to get rid of her. I mean, it boggles the mind how some of these idiots could have stayed in these organizations for so many years. Well, it does have the explanation, because of course that was the objective. You know, you want to get brown nosers. All you want is brown nosers who won't question anything that's going on. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. So Robert Powell, he was the head of the division. Now, you know, by this time, I've already started, I attended, you know, I put the dots together in the spring 2016 meeting, but this is the end of 2015, and I've already started examining the international arena and the, you know, the IMF, the World Bank. And in fact, I had finished, or at least the draft of my report, Financing for Development, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And that's, I think, oh, I forget, but maybe 200 pages, I forget. But, you know, it's not a short report, and it goes into a lot of things. It still needs to be a final, you know, editing. So I was, how shall I say, already a little bit in the know of what's going on. So I was extremely interested to see what this division was doing. And I was just flabbergasted, because the only thing that this division produces, and I'm talking like 6, 7, 8 people at least, they count. Any assistant should be able to do this with a good Excel spreadsheet. Well, okay, they did, there was some analysis in there, but they're counting how many courses are being given and what categories, and that's it. And all of these salaries in order to justify that. I was like, this is ridiculous. And, you know, there was this, the CCB meetings, and, you know, all this preparation, because then they present to all of the different, well, representatives or different heads of all of the different departments throughout the IMF to show what they're doing. And I was there with all the bigwigs taking attendance. Believe me, and Rosa, she was more than happy, because I'm usually like, you know, yeah, all of these meetings, I was like, no worries, Anna Rosa, I'll go and take the attendance. I'll stay in the meeting and sit there. Robert Powell, when I am doodling or something like that, don't think that I'm not listening. In fact, you might be a little bit concerned. I don't know if you should be more concerned when I'm doodling or when I'm taking notes frantically. Kind of same difference, I can assure you. So Robert Powell, I am far, far from the little bimbo that you think. They had, they did all these practice presentations, and they were doing a practice presentation before the final one over in HQ with all of the bigwigs. And this is in the boardroom of Christine Lagarde. And well, maybe, no, it wasn't it wasn't the boardroom. It's one of those conference rooms over there. But with all the bigwigs. So they're doing a practice, and he says to everybody, he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I thought it was good. I said, I really not, because I've been in the department, in the division for like 1 month. And I'm not terribly familiar with all of the subject matter, but I understood everything that you were talking about. And he just turns to me, I mean, viciously says to me, it wasn't meant for you to understand. And I was like, buddy, you are so far off the mark. I don't know what these little ladies have filled your head with, but you're in for a rude awakening, because I am not some bimbo parasite, and everything that I've been through in this place for the past 7 years, I'm going to be seeing all of your asses in court along with everybody else in this town. And if you guys don't realize that by now, you really should end up in prison with all of your assets taken, along with, your wives. What I've lived through, because a lot of it is because you SOBs are not doing your job. You think I give a shit about the consequences for your little social climbing parasitic wife, who, what the hell is she doing in this country, hanging out at country clubs? I mean, you guys should be here setting an example, a good example, instead of this arrogant bullshit. And the guy is an idiot. He's an absolute idiot. Pompous idiot. I cannot wait to see this one up on the stand. Now, since he knows how to brown nose the right people, but he made a big mistake with me, he is the liaison with the UN, the IMF and the UN. Robert Powell, I got your number. Believe me, not going to end up well. So the next person is Gerd Schwartz. Excuse me, Gerd Schwartz. He's German, very nice guy. But tunnel vision and too much of just go along with the flow. And so a typical IMF employee. Well, typical, because you got your assholes. You got the decent ones, but they all, just they'll, as I say, where are these guys in doing something about all of the mismanagement that's going on in there? They know about it. Yet here I am putting my ass on the line for everybody while they're in their $1 million homes and ka-ching, 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 and their vacations every year and their trips home and their kids in lots of fancy schools and expensive schools. Yeah, I'm paying a price, but excuse me, at the end of the day, I'm tired of it. All of you people in this town and give me attitude to boot. So anyway, Gerd Schwartz, I did see Gerd Schwartz. I was trying to, I think I might have mentioned that, I'm not sure. There was a big data challenge at the launched by Christine Lagarde. It was a competition for IMF employees, and contractuals were also could enter. So it was a big data challenge, and anybody who came up with ideas. So the idea that I had was that with all of the data that we have through the emails, there's all sorts of places, Facebook, all sorts of places that because there is enormous amount of data, that through this big data, again, I'm not a techie expert, but I understand the concepts, that we can pull all of that and start using that in meaningful statistical analysis. So I mean, there's a lot of statistics, but you can always gather more and make your point. So I even found it was Gerd Schwartz who had this Monica Newak, no, very good, young girl. They had done some report on equality for women or something, so I'd approached her. She was interested. I talked to Gerd about it. That's when Adrian ousted me, and of course the girl didn't want to do it when I wasn't there, because it is let's just say out of left field, but it would have been, but it's still something that could be migrated. It did bring up the big data. So that's Gerd. Ralph Shammi, another guy, he's from Lebanon, nice guy, but this is not about being liked or having friends. You want to get in the game, you want these kind of positions, you better produce. And if you don't, and if you get involved in cover-ups for turning a blind eye, whatever you want to do, for all of the labor rights violations going on, or problems with the practices and policies which are counter to the mission of your organization, you have an obligation to do something or say something. And if it's, go to the staff association. If you don't want to do it by yourself, which I can understand, and there's much of a problem, get together and build coalitions and go through the staff association. That's where you have the voice and say, you know, this is totally unacceptable. Because if you don't, you can end up with a lawsuit from me under RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, Patriot Act, and let's go for gold, you know. Pick your poison. You want to be in the game. I mean, this is the thing that's ridiculous, everybody. You missed the boat. You missed the boat. I'm like, yeah, well, I stayed on the docks, but your little boat is a Titanic. Good riddance. Then there is Andrew Berg. He's American. I mean, he seems like a decent guy. I never really spoke with him. But again, I don't care if you're a decent guy. Or well, you know, your wife, what the hell is your wife doing all day long? Looking for a job and cashing in, or hanging out at the country club? I mean, these are organizations that employ thousands and thousands and thousands of people in Washington. And their kids, I mean, okay, it depends, because if you're a local, you know, it depends on what your contract is, but the expats that come here, they, I mean, I forget, but I'm pretty sure they get, because we always got, well, when we were in South America, we got 2, you know, flights. And of course, we always went to Spain. My ex had said, no, since my wife's American, I want 2, because we're going to go to the United States and Spain. But then we always went to Spain, of course. But tuition reimbursement for their children and their spouses. What has everybody done with all of the diplomas that they have accumulated all of these years on taxpayers' money? Cashed in to the corruption. So, you know, again, they should be going through the IMF Staff Association if they don't, you know, somehow build, they are a labor force. They have more than enough money to go and hire lawyers. But nobody wants to get involved because they know, just like Joseph Stiglitz in 2000, he was ousted because they didn't like him. They didn't like what he had to say. Dr. Kim, he left because they didn't like him. I mean, the president of the World Bank, this is supposed to be one of the most powerful positions in the world. And he threw up his arms and left because a bunch of game playing bitches, come on, SOBs, control the place. If they made me president, I applied for the job, and when he left, and they're going to have problems because they didn't even consider me. Oh Lord, I can assure you, first, my first stop would have been HR. Out. Every single frickin' one of you. And then it would have trickled down, I can assure you. But anyway, so now we go to the second pile, George Washington, the first president. Let's see, George Washington, I went out to Mount Vernon. When I was here as a student in the 80s, I didn't do much sightseeing. Never had time, never had the money. But my parents were here visiting, and my brother was here, so we went out to Mount Vernon. And I have to say, it's definitely worth going out to. to visit, and it was very interesting to see all of the inventions. They told, you know, it is nicely done, and it explains the farm and how it was working and the different inventions. And George Washington was very, very interested in all of that. You know, very intelligent man, and of course, if he hadn't been a good general, I think we probably wouldn't have won. So I'm sure there's some criticism there, but now one of the things that really, I guess, was an eye-opener was when we were out there. Because the children were from Martha, his wife. They didn't have children together, and that was from her first marriage. She was a widow, and there was I forget the daughter, but she was like the favorite of George Washington. He absolutely adored her, but she had problems with epileptic fits, and a lot of these fits, and in fact she died. And she had been preparing, he was coming back, and they had been preparing a play or something, and she, you know, I forget, got up from the table and had one of her epileptic fits and died. Now the thing is, if one looks into all sorts of abuse or stress, let's just talk about stress, because, you know, he was a very domineering and how shall I say, oppressive, I don't know if that's the right word, but person. So I think she was a highly sensitive girl. But this is what we see all the time in this power over paradigm. You see, you know, epilepsy is one of the many things that you know, you see. I mean, I know I have low blood pressure, and it's all related to stress. Not all related to stress. However, in high stress situations, I have more of a problem. So, you know, all of these issues and problems, I mean, we even see it with autism, Asperger syndrome. I mean, this was one of the things with Emily Post. There was a book, it was the introduction or something, they're all back there. And one of the guys, you know, who was saying thank you, as I say, it was the introduction, said all of Emily Post's advice had really helped him because he suffered from Asperger and being more comfortable in social gatherings. So see, there is, like, there you see, you know, etiquette and manners, it do matter, and that the right to scream, the right to scream that I had earlier, you know, the rights of the right to scream, right to be entitled, right to be dominant, that has a detrimental effect on those around you. And this gets, I mean, as I say, there's a whole spectrum of, and of course, the worst abuse, like the worst is sexual abuse. You see a lot of schizophrenia with sexually abused, and usually over periods of time and starting when they're young. So it does have a real impact. It's just like, oh my God. And poor George Washington, I know he was totally distraught And you know, of course, nobody understood why she had this epilepsy. But it was sad. See how women can take a subject and take you someplace where you didn't realize you're going to end up. Okay, so gosh, I don't know how long I've been now. Okay, the last is Phyllis Chesler. I've already talked about Phyllis Chesler. She's a, you know, feminist, bigwig, academic, 18 books and counting. One of the things that just shocked me with her was she had been at UN Women. She was a contractual. This is years and years and years ago. And while she was there, she was raped by her boss. And I might have told this story, but her colleagues convinced her not to pursue it, either within the organization or through you know, criminal proceedings, because if she did, that would be considered discrimination, because the guy was Black and she was white. And my thing with Phyllis, and she says, well, she, you know, succumbed and didn't pursue it because she was a single mother and needed the job. And I forget, when I was looking at her, you know, her background, and I'm not sure if she was married or not, but her, you know, her boyfriend, fiance, the father of her child, let's just say her romantic life was all over the map and highly dysfunctional. And how she ends up a single mom. This whole thing about, I'm great because I'm a single mom. Now, they should not be, you know, targeted in hate crimes or discriminated against. Nobody should be, you know, discriminated against because they're a single mother. But that is not something that should be promoted as a situation to aspire to, and something to be proud of. As I say again, you know, of course, like, you know, from before, you do not want to, you know, make these people, marginalize them or shame them, because it is a difficult situation, and but let's stop producing that. You know, that's not a good model for any society. I mean, there's a reason, kind of. I mean, we are the animals, because we are animals, that have the longest, how do you know, educational, socialization time for our offspring. The only thing anybody else keeps them around for well, nowadays is 18 or plus. But you get my point. I mean, none of the other animals do that. So, you know, it is a long process. I guess that's also what makes us more intelligent than the other animals, because we do have to teach our young for a much longer period than other animals. So that's like I'm like, you feminists, why is this something to write home about? Yeah, you shouldn't be ashamed of it, but shouldn't be proud of it either. Or to be responsible. And I'm sorry, single parent homes, again, you shouldn't be shamed for it, but it is not an ideal situation for bringing up children. It's just not. I mean, that's why a lot of times, before, I had much more people die early on, and people would live with their family members. But the fact that Phyllis Chesler, see, this is typical of the feminist. If they are so much against assault against women, when it happens to them, they wouldn't go crawl in a corner. They'll be like, no. Even if I take the heat, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take a stand. Instead of, no, I'm going to, run away with tail behind my legs and go and cash in for some more books. Because if I say anything, it'll destroy my career. Yes, well, see, I mean, this with Megyn Kelly, when she came out and she said, well, if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't have been able to be on TV and be a star. Well, this has consequences for women who are not willing to do that, who won't, oh, well, okay, I'll just shut up and go and brown nose someplace else so I can cash in. I mean, sure, I could have played that game, but I'd be a whore just like the rest of you. So, okay. My cards, I pulled my card before, which remind me here. Okay, this time I get, John Hancock. I think I might have gotten him before. Hancock, a wealthy merchant and leading political figure from Massachusetts, served as president of the Second Continental Congress and governor of Massachusetts. He is remembered for his large and stylish signature on the United States, the Declaration of Independence, which he was the first to sign. Yeah, I already had this one. I talked about John Dickinson. He was the first to sign it. Hancock, John Dickinson was the only one who didn't sign it. So I'll do my final card, a little Alice in Wonderland. Okay. First pile, second pile, third pile, and mine. First pile, which is the IMF, ICD directors. We can talk when there's anybody worth talking to. Yeah, well, the guys over at that place are not really worth talking to. We can talk, people, when you get some people that I can talk to. Pile 2. Why is a raven like a writing desk? That I'm going to have to think about. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. Okay, all mimsies were the Borregos and the Moms wrapped out grave. Again, gobbledygook for Phyllis Chesler and feminist. For me, beware the Jabberwock, my son. The jaws that bite, the claws that catch. I guess, again, all the swamp dwellers and the feminists and everything. Okay, well, that's it for this evening. Have a nice evening. Good night.